subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Hello, wonderful viewers and students. I'm very happy to come into your homes this wonderful day. I'm sure you are happy to see me once again on the Joy Learning show. Now, get glued to your TV, don't move it to any other station, and let's enjoy the lesson. Pick up your notebooks, pens, pencil, and all the necessary gadgets or equipment that we need in this lesson. Our lesson for today is for Form 2, JHS2, and the topic is production in Ghana. Now, before we start the lesson, we'll have a quick introduction. So the introduction goes this way. Ghana depends largely on primary production. This is one of the factors responsible for our inability as a country to improve on the living standards of the people. Our country, Ghana, needs to move or graduate into secondary and tertiary production as the only viable way for ensuring sustainable development. Right. In every lesson, we need an objective. The objective is going to help us to understand all that we have learned and also to achieve our targets. So, for the lesson objective, we have by the end of the lesson, you, the student, the learner, or the viewer watching me will be able to define the term production. State the 3 types of production. Explain with example the 3 types of production. Explain the meaning of primary production, secondary production, and tertiary production. And lastly, state major problems facing the primary production in Ghana. So that's the topic neatly written on your screen, production. So quickly write it down in your notebook and underline it as I have done for you, production. Right. So what is production? Production simply means any human effort used in changing the form of something and provision of service with the sole aim of satisfying one's wants. Production covers all those activities which provide goods and services which people need or for which they are prepared to pay at a price. So, for example, I will not give you the example now. Let's look at this. That is an industry. And so you can see they are producing something. I cannot actually mention names because I don't want to brand some people's products here. So we are assuming that they are producing something. So they are there in their numbers. This one does this one does that. And so they are in the production room producing a particular product. Production can also be defined as the process by which things are made through the creation of goods and services to satisfy human wants. It can only be completed when the goods and services reach the final consumer. So for example, if we have cocoa, I'll use cocoa because cocoa is planted in Ghana. So for example, we have cocoa. And so the cocoa goes through a process. And after the process, the final stage is yogurt. That's the chocolate yogurt or even Milo or any other beverage that we can get from cocoa. So that's where the final consumer enjoys the cocoa. So nobody eats cocoa in raw state as sometimes we just enjoy it. But we don't, you can't say today I'm going to take cocoa, eat cocoa as breakfast. No, the raw cocoa, no, you can't do that. Now let's look at the types of production. So if we have production, then we will definitely have types, as we mentioned in the introduction. So there are 3 main types of production. They are the primary production, the secondary, and then the tertiary production. Examples of the types of production, the examples of the types of production. So that means that, as we just mentioned earlier on, we have the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. And so all these also have examples. That's why I captioned it, examples of types of production. So we have the primary. So in the primary is the raw states. So we have fishing, mining, logging, and quarrying. Then in the secondary, we have wood and cocoa processing. Then we have textiles, and then we have cooking utensils. So that means that in the secondary state, a process has happened. So in the raw state, which is the primary state, has moved to the secondary stage, which is now being processed into something else. And then the tertiary stage is teaching. For example, what I am doing right now, I am teaching. I'm giving a service. I'm rendering a service. And then banking, and again, transports. We have so many, so on and so on. You can mention as much as you can. When the assessment time comes, I'll give you questions, and then you add more examples to my examples. Now, we cannot talk about production or types of production without factors of production. So this is just going to I'm just going to flip through this, but I'll not touch on the factors of production because that's not actually what we are doing. But I need to bring it in for you to have an idea about what factors of production can do in the topic production. So the inputs needed for creating goods and services, which include land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital, they are keywords that are necessary in production. So these, as you can see on the screen, we have factors of production, which is the land. Before you can even plant cocoa, you need to get the land for the primary production. You need labor, those who work on the cocoa plantation. And then you need capital, money must go into it. And then you, the entrepreneur, you have to now work through the secondary stage and then move to the tertiary stage for you to do what? To contribute your quota to Mother Ghana. So the same as I just explained, land, that's the natural resources, the things that we have in the natural state, like the fishes, the gold, blah, 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 and others. And then we have labor, human skills, and the effort. Then capital is the equipment and the material in terms of what? Money. If you don't have the money, you can't buy the materials or the equipment. Then the enterprise, that's the entrepreneur, organization, how he organizes and undertake the production in every stage of the production stages. So together they produce goods and services for their production. Now let's explain what primary production means. Primary production is the process of producing or extracting natural resources or raw materials from the environment which already exists in nature. I'm sure you are jotting down the points as I explain. Some of these raw materials include mineral, timber, sand, rocks, and fish. When we say fish, we get them from the sea or lagoons or rivers. The production of these raw materials cover the agriculture and mining sectors. For example, crop production, animal husbandry, fishing, forestry, and lumbering are all part of what? Primary production. Industries that engage in the manufacturing of raw materials are called primary industries or extractive industry because we extract the minerals from the core of the earth. You know that the next time we'll be talking about or discussing mining. So we'll learn about the types of mining, and so we'll come to extraction of minerals from the core. In Ghana, crop production includes food crops for household. I'm sure this afternoon, Mommy is going to prepare some hot banku with some fetidechi or a mommy flour, and I know you are going to enjoy it. It's all these foodstuffs are from the primary industry, from the primary sector. Again, industrial raw materials, the raw materials that are gotten from the primary stage is used in the industry to prepare items and goods. Again, export crops or cash crops. Kinds of primary industries in Ghana. So we have the primary industry, but we have various kinds. So we are just going to touch on them. Ghana's primary industry includes the following. Cocoa industry, very key points. The cocoa industry is dominated by cocoa farmers who plant and harvest cocoa pods or raw cocoa beans and sell them to companies such as Cocoa Processing Company, found in Takoradi and some other parts of Ghana, but especially in the Western and then Ashanti region, which manufactures Milo, chocolates, and chocolim, my very best, for our hot cocoa beverages. I'm sure this morning you took Milo, those in the sachet, especially those of you in the boarding houses. That's what you take. It is from the cocoa industry. The cocoa husk is also sold to make soap and pomades. Have you ever used any one of them? Try it. Very, very good for the skin. Right. Timber or lumbering industry. The timber industry is dominated by chainsaw operators, timber merchants, and sawmillers who extract economic trees from the country forest for sale or use. The main product is timber or heavy logs of wood. So the heavy logs are called timber. And so some of these timber or heavy logs can be gotten from areas in the western region too, of course, especially Samra Boy. You can get this timber from Samra Boy, which is also in the primary, or it's also a kind of production in the primary sector. Wawa and mahogany are the most important trees from which timber is produced. Others are sapele, mahogany, and odum. Timber producing areas in Ghana are in the Western, Ashanti, Bono, Ahafo regions and some parts of the Eastern region. I quite once remember when I was teaching this topic, a student asked me, Madam, why is it that Accra has not got timber? So I told the student that Accra is not a forest area. We don't have much of the forest here. But when you go to the Western Axim, that's the rainforest, and you go to the Ashanti region, they have a lot of forest. So they have a lot of lumber, that is trees there, that can be used for lumbering. Now let's move on to where we can get those in Accra to get some of the industry. So fishing industry. Fishing is a primary in production because the fishermen take the fish from the sea, lake, lagoons, etc. And then the fish is the major source of protein in our diet. And the fish again can be used for canned fish like the sardine. And nampa tuna and nampa mackerel are all parts of it. Then we come to the mining industry. The mining industry extracts minerals from the bowels of the land. That's the core of the land. Examples of such minerals are gold, diamond, bauxite, manganese, and salts. The mining industry also includes stone quarrying and sand winning. Examples of mining companies in Ghana are Anglo Gold and Shanti, Newmont Company, Bogoso Gold Limited. Now let's look at the screen carefully and take down the salient points and jot down some of the examples of primary industries and their location. So the primary industry and their location. So that's it on the screen. And their location. So let's look at the mining industry. The mining industry is part of the primary industry because everything is got in the raw state. So we have the location, we have Insuta, we have Obuasi, and then we have Awaso. For the mining industry, we can mention as more and more and more and more examples of them. Now the fishing industry, we have Apa, which is called Apam, and then we have Winneba, we have Greater Accra, Jamestown. That's how we can get a fishing industry. And then we have Tema, the almighty Tema Harbour. That place is also a fishing industry. And then let's move on to the mango industry. Mango industry. We have Nsawam, and then we have Somanya. Somanya is also a mango industry. So if you want mangoes, go to that stretch or that area. You get a lot of mangoes that you can use in making your mango juice. Now let's look at rubber. Rubber is also found or located at Bonsaso and Axim in the western region of Ghana. Then oil plantation. We have Kede in the eastern region of Ghana around Odan area, and then Isiama in the western region, and then Benso and Trifo. So that's Trifo Praso area. You can get oil plantation. So most of our palm nuts or palm oil is from that area. Contribution to the primary production, to the socio-economic development of Ghana. Very, very important. Anything that we have in Ghana should contribute to nations building. So let's look at one. What is the contribution of the primary production to the socio-economic development of Ghana? One is employment. The primary industry together employs over 50 to 60% of working population in Ghana. In fact, actually, it can even be 50 to 80%. Yes, because a lot of people work in the government sector. So we'll say 50 to 60 or thereabouts 80 of the working population in Ghana. It offers employment for cocoa farmers, yes, fishermen and others. And for example, even teachers, doctors, lawyers and others also contribute their primary production to the economic development of Ghana. Again, food. Very, very important. Food is good, you know. Yes, I'm sure some of you, when I said food, you have started salivating. But this time, we are eating social studies and we are delving into social studies. That's the food we eat. And so we will get a 1 in social studies. Anytime, any topic of this nature drops in the examination, class test, quiz, whatever, you should be able to understand the topic production in Ghana. Food, it provides food to feed the people of the country. For example, yam, cocoyam, and fish from the primary industries feed ourselves, yes. So when you have yam, a little contomere, and some fish, just imagine, why you are boom, now they go from benso, eguso, then you are off to go. I'm sure somebody is salivating. That's the importance of what food as a contribution to the socio-economic of Ghana. Then revenue to the government. Why do we say this? We say this because the government gets revenue in the form of income tax and export tax from the agricultural products. So cocoa, for example, which is in the raw state, when it is processed, what happens? It is sent, exported outside, and then we get what? Revenue from that, or we get foreign exchange from it. And those that we sell locally too, we get revenue because people pay taxes on everything that you buy on the market. Problems facing the primary industries. So if there's a contribution, definitely there will be a what? A problem. Right. So inadequate or low capital. Many people and companies who produce primary products do not have enough money to buy much needed machinery and equipment to do their business. Yes, of course. Or if they even have, they may not have all of them to be able to achieve their targets. Transport difficulties or poor roads and rail network. Most roads linking sources of primary products are impassable or in a bad state. When we say impassable, they cannot have access way to get to where the raw materials are, especially during the rainy season. It's a hell when you go to certain areas. Cars or trucks get stuck with perishable goods. Just see that the fruits or the vegetables are just getting rotten. So it is due to what? Some of the problems, that's transport difficulties. Farmers expand their farms faster than the road network. Yes, during rainy season, farmers work very hard. Timber contractors who go to the forest with felled trees find it difficult to access roads because the road network in the rural areas is not the best. Just as we said, it is impossible. They cannot access it. So all these things get stacked and remained in the forest and gets rotten. So you can just imagine, this is a big problem. And so the government needs to beef up and do the right work so that we as individuals and citizens can also enjoy what has been planted in our nation or our motherland, Ghana. High lending rates. Since most farmers do not have access to soft loans, some of them resort to money lenders who give them loans at high interest, and some even chase them and take back their lands from them because they have not been able to pay the money that they went to take. So what happens? When this happens, it makes the poor farmer not able to continue with whatever he wants to plant for Ghana. So high lending rates. When they go to the banks, it's difficult for them to access loans. So these are some of the challenges that some of the farmers have. Now let's look at, so if we have problems and then we have solutions to the problems, let's look at how we can add value to this, our primary product. When you say add value, so let's say for instance, you have made kube toffee, you know kube toffee, or you have made condensed milk toffee. How do you add value to it so that when I see it, I will buy it? So after you have done your kube toffee, then you wrap it in a, maybe you can add a little ribbon to it to make it attractive. So when I see, I'll say, oh, this kube toffee, hey, this a modern way of doing kube toffee. Or you can add vanilla or something to it so that it makes it very interesting and attractive and nice for others to buy. So when we say adding value, that's what we actually mean. It could be in the finishing, or it can be in the way you produce it. Right, so we can add value to our cocoa by processing cocoa beans into cocoa powder, shea butter, cocoa liquor, cocoa cakes, and cocoa chocolates. I'll be very glad to eat the cocoa cake. I love cake so much. I'll be very, very, very glad if I could get some any of these days to eat, to see how cocoa cake really looks like. I think I've taken the cocoa bread before from Koforidia. It was very perfect. Right, so these are some of the things we add value to, the things that we have already. We add other things to it. The second point is we can add value to cotton by producing them into cloth. So that's another important point there. We can also add value to fish by processing them into canned fish and fish meals. So what are some of the fish meals that you know that can be value has been added to it? And then, for example, that's for the canned fish. I earlier on mentioned a nampa tuna. I used to see a man doing an advert, nampa tuna, and be rubbing the stomach. You can add the other words to it anyway. We can also add value to palm oil or oil palm by processing them into soap. So most of the soap that we use, especially key soap, obolo, and the rest, are made out from what? The oil, or palm oil or oil palm. We can also process fruits such as mangoes, oranges, and pineapples into fruit juice. Yes, when we add value to it, then that means that from the primary stage, it has gone through a process into the juice. And so the juice, a little bit of ginger can be added. So you can say pineapple ginger drink. You have added value to it. Right. We can also process tomatoes into tomato paste. For that one, you know them, they are on the market. A lot of them with different names and different brands. You have added value to it. We can also process timber into plywood, saw timber, and veneer. Shea nuts and cashew can be processed into shea butter and edible oil respectively. Have you eaten shea oil before? Yes, I'm sure my brothers and sisters from the north will tell you that it's very, very wonderful delicacy when you are using it to prepare ogbono stew. Very, very nice. Ogbono stew is a food eaten by Nigerians, but we also eat some here. We call it ademe, or there's another name that the Northerners, they have mentioned it. When the phone lines are open, they will mention the name to me. Right. We can also add value to sugar cane by processing them into sugar or sugar beets. Right. We can also add value to bauxite by processing them into household utensils. So all the household utensils that we use at home is made from the raw material or the raw bauxite from the primary industry. And then it can also be used for roofing sheets, door panels, and then window panels. Secondary production. Secondary production. It involves turning raw materials into finished and semi-finished goods. So the raw material is in the primary state. And so the secondary part is turning the raw material in the primary stage into the what? Finished and semi-finished goods, such as soap, clothes, radio, cars, furniture, books, television, pens, shoes, etc. You can mention as much as you can. Your school bag is also part. So rubber, then it turns into what? The slippers that we wear, the rubber slippers, right? It is called secondary production because they change or transform the raw materials produced by the primary industry into finished goods. Are you okay with that? Right, let's move on. Again, secondary. Examples of some secondary industries are the Tema cocoa processing industry, the furniture industry, Unilever Ghana, etc. are called secondary products because they have changed the primary product into the secondary product. Another name for the secondary industry is called manufacturing industry because that's where the processes take. From the primary, it goes there and then it is transformed or it is made into a different product or goods. Good. Now let's look at examples of the secondary industry. Secondary industry and their location. As we did for the primary, it's the same that we are doing for the secondary. So we have oil refinery. Remember that one we have oil production. So this one we have the refinery because now it is in a process. So we have Tema and Takoradi. Then we have the cement industry. Cement industry. That's where we get the clinker. Okay, so Takoradi, Tema, and Aflao in the Volta region. Wow, that's great. Then we have the textile industry. We have Tema. We have Joapon. We have Akosombo. Then we have the cocoa processing industry. That is in Takoradi, Tema, and then Tafo. Then aluminium industry and chemical industry. So we have Tema and Accra. So these are the two main industries. Tema industrial area and then Accra industrial area. Right. Importance of secondary production to the socio-economic development of Ghana. So we had the primary one and then the secondary. Let's look at what the secondary production does to the socio-economic development of Ghana. To reduce our dependency on foreign goods, it's very, very important for us to depend on our own products. The firms which were established to produce these items were doing what? Firstly, was importing all these things from outside. But now, if we have all these raw materials here, we can process them and have our own what? Products or our own goods, which will help build the what? The economic development of Ghana. This helps the nation to reduce their dependence on foreign goods, especially goods from our colonial masters. For example, people love to say, I have this shoe, it is from Britain. I have this shoe, it's from London, US. But let's use our own made in Ghana products so that we can help in the development of our socio-economic situation in Ghana. Again, we are going to look at how we can add value to our raw materials. Again, it adds value to our raw materials for exports. When we process our products very well, what happens? We can send these products outside, sell them, and get what? Foreign exchange. Now, they add value to exports to earn higher prices on the world market. For example, cocoa beans is processed into cocoa powder. Minerals are refined, and timber logs are processed into plywood before exporting them. It serves as a source of employment. Through secondary production, lots of Ghanaians gain employment as plumbers, artisans, electricians, masons, engineers, and all these people earn income that improves their standard of living. Again, it serves as a source of revenue for the government. Why are we saying this? Secondary production provides revenue. When we say revenue, money, you understand, revenue to the government through taxation. Anything that is processed, there's tax on it. So by so doing, the government obtains money in the form of excise duty, income tax, and then export taxes on these industrial products. Now, the third part of production, the third part, the three types of production, that's the third one, is the tertiary production. Tertiary production is the third and last stage of production. It is the production of services to support primary production and secondary production. So that means that these three, the tertiary is the last born of it. Can we find some mnemonics to the three types? So we have P, S, and T, PST, PST. So that's the mnemonic that we can get from it. So anytime you want to remember the types of production, you just remember PST, which is primary, secondary, and then what? A tertiary. So we say that is the last stage of production. It is the production of services to support the primary and the secondary production and the general development of the country. So without the tertiary, the production is incomplete. Tertiary production again. It is the production of services to support primary and secondary production and the general development of the country. An example is when a teacher teaches students, the teacher has produced a service, as I am doing. So we have the Ghana Education Service because we render services. So we are the third stage of what? Production. When a doctor treats a patient or a sick person, then the doctor has produced a service. So we have Ghana Health Service. Do you see it? Another example, as you have just mentioned, is someone who does what? Who quenches fire. So we have Ghana Fire Service because the person is rendering a service to you when fire gets anywhere. The fire service will come in. So we have a lot of service. So these are all the tertiary production stage where we need these people and then they do this job for us. It may be classified as commercial services. Yes, it is commercial because they do a lot of service. They render services to the populace or the public, or a personal service. So for what I'm doing right now, even though I'm teaching a lot of people, it is a personal service. But the moment I enter the classroom, I am rendering a service to Ghana Education Service. That is if I teach with the Ghana Education Service. Do you understand that? Good. And so again, commercial services refer to the services of wholesalers, retailers, banks, insurance, and personal or direct services, which refers to the services of doctors, lawyers, teachers, etc., etc. As many as you can mention. Now, the tertiary production sector includes teaching. We said that already. Teaching. Legal system. When we say legal system, we are talking about the lawyers. Are you okay? Lawyers. And then banking and finance. Banking and finance, we are talking about the bankers, those who work at the banks, susu collectors and all those, they are all part of it. The transport industry, State Transport Corporation, OK, or whatever, all those transports. And then the normal trotro in quotes. And I always say that when you're writing something that is not English, you have to put them in inverted commas. They are also part. And then hotel and catering industry is also part of it, tourism and others. Another name for the tertiary industry is called the service industry, because I actually said it earlier on that services, Ghana Education Service, Ghana Health Service, Ghana Fire Service, Police Service, and so on. It is only in the military that you can say Ghana Armed Forces Service. No, they are a special people and they do whatever they want to do. But these are the services. You can mention as many as you know. But for time's sake, we will just keep to this one. And as you read your textbooks, you will see a lot of them in it. Now let's look at examples of the tertiary industries. And then the names, that's the firm, and then their location. So banking. Banking, as we said, is a service. So we have Ghana Commercial Bank, which can be located in all towns and regions in Ghana. So, but I just took a little, or one or two of them. Kumasi, Accra, Tema, Takoradi, Bibiani, they are all there, all over. And then we have Agri-Development Bank, Agri-Development Bank, and then that one too can be located in almost all the regions in Ghana, but I chose Greater Accra. Then we have land and transportation. So we have State Transport Corporation, also in Kumasi, Accra, Takoradi, and Ho and other regions. Then we have the media. We have media, which is also rendering services. So we have multimedia, we have GTV, we have TV3 and others, Net2 and others. But the popular one is multimedia, right? Then we have insurance. We have insurance, we have State Insurance Company, and then we have Glyco, we have Metropolitan Insurance, all located in Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, Ho, Sunyani, and others. Then lastly, we have the hotel industry. The hotel industry, we have La Palm, we have Kempinski, we have Movenpick, we have Golden Tulip, and the one just behind your house, which is called Jinyame Hotel, or any other name, they are all part of the hotel industry. You can mention as much as you can, but these are the key ones that the state has. That's why I brought the state ones. So if you have Kofi Babone Hotel behind your school, and it's also a hotel industry is part of it because they are rendering services to the people around you. Importance of the tertiary production. What's the importance? One, it also serves as employment. So you see this source of employment runs through all of them. So you should take note of it. That when they were asked, if you have even forgotten, remember that one, employment, revenue is right there. Let's go. It provides job and for the population in the service provision industry. For instance, over 40% of the working population is working in the service sector, like the banking, insurance, teaching, hairdressing, etc., organizing, and others, right? I'm really enjoying the lesson. I'm sure you are also enjoying it, and you are taking down the salient points. Very, very important, because I will not teach this topic again, because I know I have really delivered it today, and you also understand it. Now, let's go to the next point. It promotes international trade. Why are we saying it promotes international trade? That means that foreign trade. This sector renders services, especially financial and insurance, to the firms that engage in imports and exports. Import and export trade, you understand? So when you do buy and sell internationally, what do we get? Because when you are buying something from Ghana, you use cedis. When you send something there and they are also paying, they will give us their money equivalent, which is in dollars, pounds, Dutch mark, or whatever, right? Finance. Finance is also another point. It grants both short-term and long-term loans to firms and countries. Safekeeping. Safekeeping. It makes the safekeeping of goods, including cash, for the future use possible. Now, we have discussed all the three types of production. And so we have to also look at, if there are these three types of production, then definitely there should be a vocation in which all these three types of production fall. So we are looking at the primary, we are looking at the secondary, then we'll look at the tertiary. So in the primary sector, we have quarrying, fishing, because it is in the primary sector. So, and they are all in the raw state. So we have quarrying, we have fishing, we have lumbering, we have mining, we have poultry, we have farming, and then we have animal rearing, which is the animal husbandry. Then in the secondary parts, when the wood or the lumbering, the logs are sent to the carpenter, he works on it into plywoods, chairs, furniture. So the carpentry will come, dressmaking will come from textiles, and then shoemaking will come from rubber, and then metal work will come from chemical industry, and then basketry, kente weaving, etc., etc. And then when we come to the tertiary, as usual, as I mentioned earlier on, we have teaching, we have police officer, we have lawyers, we have accountants, we have doctors, and then we have bankers. Wonderful. I'll give you just 2 minutes to write down at least 4 of them from all the 3 groups, the 3 types. Quickly as you do that. Right. Assessment time. Interesting. Most of you do not like this part, and I know most of you do like it, especially those who really took time to understand the topic. So when the question just comes, they will be easy for them to answer. Now let's look at the first question. As usual, what is production? Question number 2. I'm taking my time because I want you to write it down, because you send your answers to Joy Learning TV on YouTube for assessments and marking. Right. Now, what is production? State the 3 types of production. What is secondary production? Easy questions, isn't it? What is secondary production? Mention 4 examples of secondary industries and their location. We just did it right now. And then lastly, give 2 examples of secondary production. I'm sure you're writing the questions very fast. The one who gets all the answers correct will be invited to the studio to come and watch a live show of any of my topics. And also, the one that does not do well, I'll give the person a motivation to next time pay attention and learn or listen to all that I've said during the lesson. Now, I'm sure you have copied all the questions, and so you send the questions, the answers to Joy Learning TV on YouTube. Until then, I am your facilitator or teacher, Anita Orchery-Asare. It's a bye-bye from the studio. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.